Welcome to the Albertapreneur Podcast, where we celebrate self-employment in Alberta. I'm your host, Jason Bacon. I'm an author, founder, and longtime lover of entrepreneurship. Through my career, I've been able to advise hundreds of self-employed individuals across the province, and I've always been inspired by their stories. That's where the podcast comes in. We're going to be digging into the stories of those people, and in particular, the graduates of the self-employment training program. For those who don't know, this is a program in partnership with the province of Alberta as well as the government of Canada, and it provides training and support to entrepreneurs who are unemployed or underemployed. And if you qualify for funding, it won't cost you anything but time. You may even receive funding while you take it. In particular, this podcast is focused on the graduates of the ExecuServe Plus training program in Lethbridge. They've been graduating entrepreneurs for more than 20 years and continue to do so. Something that I always say, and is the lesson of my book, Entrepreneur-ish, is that entrepreneur is a verb, not a noun. It's not a title, but a set of actions. And it's in that spirit that we're talking about the stories and actions of the people around you who have taken that leap of faith and tried to make it on their own. Let's get to it. Welcome to episode 3 of the Albertapreneur podcast. The title of today's episode is I love it. Nobody knows what they're doing. It's quickly become my favorite thing to go through and come up with titles with the guests based on what they know their experience is. And today's no exception to that. I've known Tim for I feel like years, honestly, in one form or another, because he's always been a part of those entrepreneur circles. And what I have always loved about Tim and the way that he approaches entrepreneurship is, anyone that's listened to this before or has heard me ramble about entrepreneurship knows that I'm a big believer that it's a verb, not a noun. It describes a set of actions. And Tim's one of those guys that is in action, right? And is constantly doing that as opposed to just talking about it, which is sometimes a trap people fall into. So, Tim, welcome to Albertapreneur.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this, and I want to jump into your story right away here. And we're really like the focus of this, as we've talked a little bit about, is to talk about those people that have gone through the self-employment training program. And I want to talk about first, where were you beforehand? Like, what was that thing that maybe led you into entrepreneurship? First off, what was that turning point, and how did you even get to the self-employment program? Let's start there.
Totally. So I had a sales job with a startup. So they were doing marketing. I was doing sales for them. And in that kind of development of that career, I met an accountant. And that accountant is how I connected eventually to the employment training. So how I took that leap.
Wait,
Again,
I gotta know though, why startup, man? Like, why go to a startup and do sales specifically? Because a lot of people would shy away from doing that.
So the big reason was I was already in sales. So really this kind of came down to a customer interaction. I was pretty young at the time and wanted to go to secondary school quite badly, but just also felt like, man, that's such a commitment. And I don't know what I want to do for the next 20, 30, 40 years. I don't want to be an accountant or a lawyer if I'm not going to love it. And I don't know if I'm going to love it if I don't do it. And I just couldn't ever picture myself doing the work. And I had never thought about like marketing before. And one day a customer came in and he was like, hey, you know what? You're a marketing person. Like you need to look into marketing. You need to go to school for marketing. Like you've got it written all over you. So I was like, you know what? I've never thought of it before. And that night I just went home and Googled marketing. What is marketing about? And then you get a bunch of stuff on Steve Jobs. I was like, I would love to be Steve Jobs. This is sweet. And
Totally.
yeah, I searched marketing Lethbridge and there was one company that popped up. And so it was like, hey, I walked in and was like, hey, I want a job. And then I got to live out kind of, hey, that's what that career could look like in marketing at this startup.
Yeah.
So
That's really cool.
That's why is it was really just kind of, you make things happen. And I wouldn't really be able to answer why outside of it was it was
I
the path
firmly
the
believe
universe
that,
chose.
though. Yeah, it does. And I am a big believer. I always say, like, life's defined in moments and refined in time. And you had a moment that was significant to you that pushed you in a direction and you embraced it, right? Which is tough enough.
Totally.
So you go to
Um,
this startup, and what's next?
yeah, so we worked there, and that's when I really got to see the boots on the ground struggles of a startup. So you're dealing with, you're always tight on cash, always looking for that next thing, always trying to uncover why isn't this working how I thought it would, and that's a lot of fun, especially when
Oh
you're in the
yeah,
sales
yeah,
perspective, because you see that tight loop of, okay, hey, we thought this product was going to do X. Let's go talk to a customer. Let's go see what they have to say about it. And that's so different than what you think it's going to be.
absolutely.
And so, yeah, like I got to see that iteration very quickly. And marketing is one that's very creative based, which means realistically, you're coming up with a product every single day. A new pitch in the marketing world is a new product. So you really get to see that evolution quite quickly. And yeah, that culminated in doing a product launch that we kind of put a bunch of time and money into developing up a new product for this marketing company. And I got to do most of the analysis on that and do the projection on it, which kind of took me to my first step in business ownership.
That's really cool, and I'm really actually glad that you made that connection because I remember once when I was working in big business, right? And we went through this training about product management, and the whole time I was like, they're just describing entrepreneurship. They're just describing what entrepreneurs do in terms of finding value,
Totally.
creating something like a minimum viable product, and going out there and getting feedback and iterating, right? So I'd love to see that connection.
Totally. Yeah. No,
So
that's totally what it is.
yeah, it is, right? So and I know that's something you have a lot of experience in. And so what's that full on push that made you go from I'm gonna work for a startup to I'm gonna be a startup?
So that came kind of like I was only at this startup for about a year, and at the end of the year, I watched these guys develop a product that was their baby. It was their dream to make this product,
Sure.
and and that's infectious to be around someone who's super passionate, an entrepreneur who's passionate about what they're doing. Like that's a lot of energy to
Uh,
be around, and it's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
By the end of that year, I had my baby, and it was like, okay, hey, this is the product I want to launch, and they weren't that passionate about it. They weren't excited about that. My bosses at the time, and so when I presented it to them, it was kind of like a no, we're not going to do that. And for me, that was super discouraging,
Yeah.
because it was kind of like, hey, no, these guys are my idols. These guys are entrepreneurs. These guys are my bosses. Like they know how to do business, and I do not. But that night, I went home and I did a bunch of research, and I wasn't I perhaps too arrogant, too too naive, too all of
Yeah.
the above, to
Yeah.
accept the fact that I was wrong. I went
Yeah.
home, did a bunch of research, and I was like, no, like this, honestly, my product, in my opinion, is better than this product that I just spent 6 months making for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I took it back to them, and they were like, you know what? All this shows us is that you think you're smarter than us. And I didn't think that. Like that was very much so the opposite of like, okay, hey, like I'm
Yeah.
trying to validate this in
That's
my
not
own
that's
head
not
of,
you
is
at
this
all,
how
man.
it's going to
That's not
work?
you. Yeah.
um, and but it did kind of click of the like, oh, like they don't know what they're doing either. Like
Mhm.
realistically, why why would I be taking their opinion over theirs? Like I just saw them go through their product and I saw it. I don't want to say fail, but like meet real opposition once it goes to like, okay, we made the
Yeah.
investment, we got what we needed to, and now we're trying to go
Yeah.
and sell it. And you know what? That real world experience doesn't quite line up with an Excel document.
Yeah.
And
Yep. Totally.
so yeah, that was the push. Right then in that meeting, I decided, okay, well then I'm going to do it on my own.
Yeah. That's a significant moment, I think, when you realize that, oh my God, everyone's just kind of like, you might think that they have it all together, right? And that they know what's best because they've seen the success. But to have that self-confidence to be like, no, they're wrong. They don't. I'm confident in this. That takes a lot of guts.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't want to give myself too much credit in the way of like confidence or naivety. You know, like at that point, I didn't know what I didn't know. So you know,
Yeah, totally. But I think the key that you said is you went home and did your research. And I think that that sometimes
totally
is a piece that's missing in the equation, right?
agreed.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and that's, largely experience based too. Like if I look back at, okay, the research I did that night, by today's standards of what I would consider a fully fledged business plan, that wouldn't
Yeah,
quite live up to it,
yeah,
which like that experience
yeah,
piece is very valuable. And I don't want to gloss over the like, hey,
totally.
blind passion and confidence cannot sustain you in an entrepreneurial
No,
world. Like that's not
no, not
enough,
at all.
but it
No.
is like without it, you don't start. So there is a little bit of kind of
Yeah.
like a negotiation between the like, this is the smart thing you should do, and then hopefully you do something that you shouldn't. And in the process of fixing that mistake, you find a new and better way to do it, is almost how it kind of unfolds.
Well, I
But anyway,
100% agree. Strategies and knowing what not to do, right?
yeah,
And I love that idea of its iteration and I know like you've seen a lot of even change, right? In terms of your entrepreneur journey. So you launch this product, you go through the self-employment program. What was your biggest takeaway from that training when you took it?
totally. Well, so the first thing I knew was like, okay, every business person has an accountant. So I went and talked to that accountant I knew. That was the very first thing. And she was like, okay, hey, like hiring an accountant is a good first step, but you're missing a million other things. So you need to go and take this entrepreneurial training. So that's how I got
Yeah.
connected in. And I'm really glad I reached out to that, because you're right, you don't really know anything about the legal liability side or even
Hmm.
financial documents and statements. It's like, you know what? You can't just say, oh, that's my accountant, and then they're going to look after everything to the same level that you as an
Hmm.
owner is going to. Like, it's just you need to be literate in all of these things, and then work with the
Absolutely.
professionals to augment the fact that you will run out of hours. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was super important. So yeah, so I went through the training, came out the other side, and launched my own marketing business focused on a lot of the digital stuff. So 2016, it wasn't as common. Social media managers weren't that common. Google AdWords
Yeah.
wasn't as big and mainstream. And
Yeah.
so that's what I had focused on. And then yeah, I ran into the same thing that everyone does, which is, okay, my Excel document said X, running out onto the streets. Oh, I haven't made any money for 6 months. I am, I'm struggling to get customers. And
Mm.
yeah, you just kind of keep changing, you keep reinventing the product, you keep honestly getting out there. I think that
Yeah.
was the biggest piece for me, was just like being out in the community. Um, like when I'm talking about changing my products, what it often came down to is, okay, let's see if I can price it a bit different. Let's see if I can, you know,
Hmm.
rename it. Let's see if I can, make it smaller, make it a little bit bigger. All of that, looking back, didn't really make as much of a difference as getting in front of more people. So if I think back to
Absolutely.
month 2 being in business, and I was excited about getting in front of a new person kind of every week, because I didn't know that many people locally.
Sure.
And fast forward 6 months, and you do the breakfast clubs, and you start to make a bit of a name for yourself. You have a customer, that grows exponentially, and now you're kind of
Yeah.
pitching to 8 people a week instead of 4 people a month, and it just keeps snowballing, and then you have more at bats to win, deals and opportunities.
Yeah, I love that and the whole idea of, and it really ties nicely in. So thanks for doing that to what I was talking about earlier with the whole idea that it's a verb and it's an action and you got to get out there, which is sometimes the most difficult thing because when you do have those conversations and you do have someone that says no or I don't see the value,
Mhm.
that's a tough thing to come back from, right? What did you do? I mean, because like you said, you hit those barriers sometimes where you're thinking, "Am I even doing the right thing?" How did you get through those moments?
Um, Honestly, not well.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like, you get a lot of no's, and so me being young, that was oh, I'm too expensive. So okay, let's
Yeah.
try and pitch to the next person at 10% less. All right, let's pitch to the next person at 10% less. And then a year goes by, and I found myself, now I have a ton of clients, now I have a ton of work. I'm hardly making any money, and I'm working 16 hours a day. And so you do exactly what it was. Is I burnt out, and you have a mental breakdown, and then you have to
Totally.
drop half your clients anyway. So it
Yeah.
in hindsight, you really do need that fit. You need to find that
Yeah.
right person that values the product, and that
Yeah.
does take a bunch of no's. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of a personal. That's kind of going back to that. Like, okay, you need a little bit of ignorance in order
Yeah.
to kind of go through and make that.
Yeah.
Because you do need to be flexible on price. Like maybe your value proposition is a little bit off. Maybe you do need to
Yeah.
offer your product at a lower price to be competitive.
Yeah.
But also
Yeah.
maybe Lethbridge isn't the place to sell it. Maybe
Yeah.
16-year-olds aren't your target audience. Maybe
Yeah.
business owners
Totally.
aren't your target audience. So it's, you
Yeah.
got, there's just so many variables. There's infinite variables that you're dealing with. And you really
Yeah.
have to trust your gut as to what it
Yeah.
is. But then in addition to trusting your gut, you really need advice from experience. So you get a
Mm.
lot of advice from experience, and then you trust your gut going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And actually, there's this idea in my book I talk about of intuitive judgment, and it's the ability to make ration decisions that make sense without having to go through that thought process of actually thinking about it and the time that it takes, right? And so it's
Totally.
that go with your gut, but for reasons, right? Not not emotional necessarily, but that are actually grounded due to experience, whether it's interaction with clients, interaction with markets, interaction with other people that are helping you, right?
Totally. And honestly, anyone
Yeah.
who knows me knows that I have an Excel spreadsheet somewhere about something. Because like honestly, if you make the same decision 3 times a day, like I do overthink things. And I love to take it back to, okay, let's go to like very first principles and like, man, is that slow to make a decision
Yeah.
based on, okay, are all the fundamentals intact? Which is why I like to do that once. Let's do it one time. Let's put it in Excel. Let's make this a calculator or a template, and then
Yeah.
you can have the faith that those fundamentals are still intact,
Sure.
but you don't have to dive so deep into the details.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that. You know, it's funny because you talk about Excel and you love it of it. And then one of your first steps as an entrepreneur was to go and talk to an accountant. Like you were seeking out a kindred spirit almost.
Which is funny because,
I say that
and
my,
you
my
know what?
sister's an accountant and she uses Excel for everything, man. She's got an Excel template for everything.
Yeah. It
Oh, I
it's
love it.
it is funny, and it's kind of true. So like I even said that already once, that I was like, man, I didn't want to be an accountant. I took like an
Yeah.
accounting course, and yeah, like I scored super well, and everyone's like, oh, you're gonna be an accountant, and I was like, no, why on earth would I be an accountant? That's got to be a really boring job. But like it is super important to business.
Absolutely.
Someone
Absolutely.
wow, I don't know who said it, but yeah, it's the language of business is what they called it. And
Yeah.
realistically, that is the case. So you
Yeah.
do need to watch out for that, but it's definitely not all of business. I like
Oh,
the
totally.
creation side
Totally.
of it a little bit too much to just be looking at numbers all day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it goes back to that idea of it's one of those components in your business that sometimes you don't even realize that you need to do, right? And like whether it's the legal, the insurance, anything like that, sometimes you don't even see those things. And you just want to do the
Totally.
thing you love, right? And that can be
Totally.
tough. Yeah. So I want to know, like, as you since then, what are you doing now? What does your entrepreneur life look like in today's world?
Yeah, so things took a big change. So marketing company, we grew that exactly that pain point that we had of, okay, you price yourself too low, and then eventually you can't find work. I
Hmm.
partnered up with someone earlier in that journey, so someone who is still, full of ignorance of, hey, let's charge 7 times more than what I was charging at that current time, and
Yeah.
offer about half of that. And they didn't really have the experience to actually deliver on the products. But the two of us
Oh, that's
combined, it
tough.
was okay. Let's see if we can get these rates. We can take care of product delivery because built kind of the systems templates involved with delivering these products.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had a lot of fun. So we partnered up, we grew that business. We started a second office in Calgary, and yeah, by the traditional markers, I would say it was relatively successful. Um, but honestly, we got a little bit bored of, okay, we're kind of at this point now where we're doing the same thing day in, day out. Me
Mhm.
specifically on the service end, it was, I don't know if I can make websites all day. I don't know if I can do social media ads all day. Because you know what, this might be a trend. Like, we're talking, all of this happened over the course of 2-3 years, and yeah, I was 100% worried that, okay, am I gonna finish this startup and not be able to do anything else? So I was looking to kind of expand and just learn new things. And my partner wanted to keep going full gas on what we were doing. And so we split up. So he bought me out, and I was looking for my next thing, and real estate opened up. So my brother actually was still in Lethbridge, and he was a commercial real estate broker, a very successful one. And he wanted to take a leap into doing a little bit more ownership and development. And so we linked up, and now we've done some since 2018, and that's what I spend all day doing.
Yeah. And you worked on the branding and marketing of that, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how that started. Was okay, doing all the branding, marketing, and then transition now into, because you really only need one logo and one website. I don't need to do that
Sure.
every month.
Yeah.
Transition a little bit into kind of like the product development side of how do we, turn what we do into an engine of templates and calculators and a product that we can duplicate going forward.
Yeah, I love that. And it's almost like this almost recurring trend that is occurring, even though we're just 3 episodes in, but I see it in a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk to, is the idea that every step, even that you've outlined today, each of these moments has naturally, in hindsight, built into the next almost, right?
Yeah,
And that you build these skills that aid you in the next step and the next step and the next step, right? And I love that about entrepreneurship because I think that's what it's all about, right?
100%.
Yeah. So what I know that like you worked a lot on the product development with like the post, say. So tell me what's going on with the post because I love that space.
Totally. So Post is the downtown post office building in Lethbridge, which that's obviously how we named it, Post. Um, yeah, like it's a 112-year-old building that has like the CRA office in it for a couple of decades. So it's just this
Oh yeah.
old, worn down government. Like, think of
Clock
the
tower
worst
building.
accounting office ever. That's kind of what the whole inside of this building used to look like, because it's the
Yeah.
CRA. and
It
and
was actually an auditing division of CRA. If you could make it
yeah,
even worse, it was they did audits. So
it
it was
was it
very
was
dank and dark.
totally. And then, okay, contrast that on the outside. So, like, my office is in this building now, and like, I've never been in a building before where you look at the window and people are taking pictures of your building. Like, that is a
Yeah.
good feeling of like, wow, like this, you're in a building that speaks to people when they walk past it. And so we just kind of took that historic element of the clock tower and tried to reimagine, okay, what would that, if you were going to build this clock tower today, what would it look like? What materials, what finishes, how does this feel? How does it make you feel? And then we renovated the whole building under that kind of principle of, okay, cool amenities, like let's put a gym in the basement. Let's not do any
Yeah.
locks. Let's make it all like smart locks so that it can like go wirelessly from your phone. You don't need to carry keys around. Let's do shared amenity rooms for like board rooms and meeting rooms and like a really nice lounge. Realistically, let's just invest a lot of money into this place and make it
Yeah.
really nice.
I
And that's what we did.
because I've been through it. Obviously, when you guys did that, almost like a soft launch, right? And I love the vibe of it. And you talk a lot about getting out there and taking action. And I think environment's a big component of that. And having been that person that's done that home business, that's tough sometimes, man. And I love that has the concept of go out and be with people that are like-minded, right? Because action begets action, right?
100%. And
Cool.
that's kind of fundamental to the post, is to like, okay, let's, exactly what we just said. It's one tenant CRA. They take a bunch of floors, and they're all of the floors. Well, that's
Yeah.
the exact
Yeah.
opposite of what we did. Is let's put an internal street through the building, and let's divide this up so that we can get 10 people in the building,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hopefully have them all interact. And then, well, you know this, Jason, but that hybrid workspace is that even
Yeah.
further, which is, okay, let's see if we can get 100 people in here and
Totally.
get this entrepreneur community going. Of, okay, we have this amazing platform. Let's see
Yeah.
if we can get people in it and using it. So Yeah, that is exciting. And it's construction is slow, which is a little bit going back to what I was talking about with marketing. And it's kind of like, okay, hey, I've got
Yeah.
this idea for a pitch. Okay, well, that
Yeah.
idea, that pitch takes you a day. And the creative element of that takes a couple of weeks to put together of, this is the product. Construction, you're dealing with a timeline of a year to build out the internals of a unit. And the
Yeah.
building itself, like this has been a 2.5, 3 year project. So it's, you're
Yeah.
dealing with a much longer timeline. Like in that 3 years, COVID happened. So it's like you're dealing with a lot more variability. And those conversations you had at day one are now different 3 years later. So yeah, that's a fun.
Because it is, and you go back to, I even wrote it down because I loved it when you were talking earlier about really it's that iteration and just being able to adapt as the world happens around you,
Mhm.
because there's no other option, right? There's no other option. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Adapt, adapt, adapt. I think that's a great place to end it here, Tim. If anyone wants to get connected, maybe they want to check out the post or see what's going on, how do they do that?
Yeah, so you can see everything going on at the post at postyql.com. Or you can come check out Summits at summits.ca,
Awesome.
sumus.ca.
Awesome. We'll make sure that we share some of that stuff out too. But thank you so much, Tim, for being here. I really love this conversation. It's a constant reminder for me that even me, people I deal with sometimes, nobody knows what they're doing. So thanks for a great conversation.
Thank you, Jason.
If you or anyone that you know could benefit from the self-employment training program, please connect them with us or ExecuServe Plus. The best way probably is to visit the Albertapreneur website or just call ExecuServe at 403-320-5604.
One of the things that I'm fond of saying is that an entrepreneur does, on average, 7 jobs in their business. One of those is marketing, but it's something that business owners struggle with, especially in the digital age. So if you need assistance, the Digital Service Squad may be able to help you out. Available to business organizations all across Alberta, as long as you're registered in the province, have between 0 and 49 employees, the Digital Service Squad will connect you with experts one-on-one and pay for up to 5 hours of support, whether it's search engine optimization, website design, social media marketing, or an overall overview of what you do for that digital side of your business. If you're in the Lethbridge region and you're interested in the Digital Service Squad, you can go to Community Futures Lethbridge website, fill out a form, and get connected with those experts today. You don't have to go it alone.